So, I've called these reality checks. We've been putting in solar and wind and getting very excited by it. In fact, it's covering less than 3% of our energy needs. And I mentioned this in a moment, but I'll say it now. If we were to go on adding solar and wind and renewables at this present rate, we would put in enough to cover all our energy needs after 360 years. So we can pat ourselves on the back. We're well on the way to achieving nothing. In the meantime, coal has increased by 3%, natural gas by a lot, petroleum a little bit less, and nuclear. So we put in solar and all the rest, and we feel very good, and we are being distracted from the real issue. And the real issue is this stuff here that goes from there to there and continues to increase. And that I've just said. So, the business model is that we continue this forever. We get little tiny chippings of solar we're allowed to put in, a few paddocks here and there, and we all get thrilled. Put it on our roofs, big personal advantage. But we're not dealing with the big issues, nor internationally. But the business model doesn't want to change because it is highly profitable. And it doesn't cost these people any more to buy coal, they've already got it underground that they pretend they like to own. Now what we would like to see is that. We might call that an ideal. But of course, according to the IPCC, we've got to achieve that in 12 years. And we know the IPCC is wrong, and they've calculated it incorrectly. Do you want a chair?
No, I'm going to say that in.
Okay. So that's the dream. And we're all hooked on this dream. We all think it's not only possible, but the best thing we could possibly do. Now, let's look at a possibility. Let's say we're going to do this. This has been actually really exercising my mind for quite a long time. Cost of renewables are roughly $1 million for a megawatt hour. Now, that to do this, transform all of that into renewables of one sort or another, $17 trillion. And over 12 years, it's roughly the same as the current investment in fossil fuel energy. So we could take that money and transfer that into renewables. This is a good theory, right? And you might think, here, our GDP is about the same. So the world GDP is 75 trillion. It's not unacceptable. This is my point. It's possible. And as people like to say today, it's doable. And this is where our effort is going, into saying to people, give us a bit more solar and we'll be happy. In fact, that is the useless side of it all. Because not only do we have to change the production power and electricity, but we have to change the things that use it. Cars, for example. There's 2 billion cars and trucks in the road. Let's have a nice small figure for moving them all over to electric. And that gives us 36 trillion cost over 12 years. That's doable. We could turn, as well as charging points, repairs, pumps, as well as all the things that we don't use batteries for, like hedge cutters and lawn mowers and so on. All of that we could change to electric, and the sun and the solar would provide us with power, and we'd have what we'd like to call a renewable system. And even at that value, it can be done. Now, we can go one further. This is a big step. This is the amount of oil, coal, gas that's in the ground, and roughly its value. So supposing we bought it all, and said to these people, we've bought your asset, leave it here. So we could actually do it for 20 trillion over 12 years. That's each year. That would be a real strain, but it's still possible. Many of the arguments are that when we went to a war footing, we were able to do extraordinary things because we put our minds to it. And if we did this and put our minds to it, we could probably find the wherewithal to buy the farm back. Whitlam tried, and he was disallowed. But the potential is still potentially there. It means that the reason that coal has to go on polluting the planet gets swept from underneath them. And the same with the others. We could just do it. And you put all those together, and that's the sort of figure you get. We add all these up. A 32 trillion, it's about half, close to half, the world's GDP. So we drop everything, and we do this. Or we get massively into debt, as the Americans are so good at doing, and then do it. So why not? That's the question, isn't it? Why have we gone now for 40 years knowing the state of the world and not going anywhere near solving it, just scattering breadcrumbs? Now, here's one reason. It's a perfectly good political reason. China, Southeast Asia, India, Middle East, countries that use a stack of power, and this is their primary energy demand. Can we influence their policies? Have we been able to? Have we changed China? Have we stopped the Indonesians pulling their forests out? We stopped the Indians, even one step. So politically, this is unabled. We can say we could solve the problem, but politically we cannot do it. And you get all these 193 nations together and look what they produce. It's the current IPCC report, which is a flurry of compromises. So, let's look at the next reality check. Let's say we were able to forget about buying the farm and we simply made all our power solar. And I'll just take the example of solar, all our power renewable, and I'll take the example of solar, because this is fairly typical. 1 megawatt requires 2.5 acres of land. 18 terawatts is what we require for the world, and it requires 3 times the amount of habitable land on the earth. We have inherent problems of size. The same applies to big wind vanes, geothermal, all the rest of it. We're back to just the incredible size of the operation. I cover my roof in panels, and I put in batteries, and that does me for much of my power, but not all of it. I'd have to double the batteries and double the panels, not to have to use something from the grid. That takes a lot of space. Then we do that for a city, and we do it for motor cars. I'd have to put panels all across my shed to service an electric vehicle. and then for buses, and then for farm machinery and tractors, go on and on and on. The amount of energy we use in our system is incredible. And to take all of that, it just isn't enough space. Crude calculation, I know, but I'm making my point. We can't sustain things as they are. And the argument about the reality check is we've got to end the fossil fuel use. We all know that. But it's costly, but not totally impossible. But politically unlikely, and we're going to run out of space. And just think of resources. Just think of how many rare materials go into the production of a solar panel, let alone anything else. And is there enough of that? And the Chinese have most of it anyway. Politically, will they give it? You know, we go on and on and on. So, if there's an answer, it might be this one. That we have to reduce the total amount of energy that we produce, consonant with the amount that we can produce in a renewable way. That's actually doable. And if you think about it, an 80% reduction in energy takes us to the amount of energy we used in the 1950s. Now, I know the 1950s. They were great. They were good years. What was wrong with them? There weren't so many people for a start. That made it a lot easier. But the beaches were empty like they are down here.
DDT.
DDT. And others.
Don't get too nostalgic.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can be. Why not? When I was young. But just recognise, this is not a return to the Middle Ages. We lived well. We had cars. Literally, many of them. Most of us hitchhiked, but that's fine. Food came in paper, not in plastic. We hardly had any plastic except Bakelite. You just think what it was like in the 50s. It was okay. So we could manage that. And whether we can manage it for the whole world, that's probably also possible. But then we have the political problems that the rich and even the rich middle class is not going to be happy downsizing. And what are people going to do with their spare time if there aren't any supermarkets? Shopping? We had books. We have books.
We had books. Community events.
And that terrible, terrible small screen black and white television. But this is a possibility. And we might think about that. But it means downsizing in a very serious way and not trying to run from the Viennese floods with a Vuitton bag. But is it possible? You know, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that frankly with all of that, it's pretty unlikely. And the sorry evidence is that we have already gone too far in destroying our home and we are too inflexible to change our ways. Is that going to be our epitaph?
Train the young people to live simply.
Huh?
Train the young people to live simply.
Good luck.
I was wondering how you say there's a course there because you bring them up and you say, you know,
I do.
don't watch television, don't do this, don't do that. So maybe they learn.
I'd like to think that our kids, much of that sort of training are examples of that, and one of them has spent the last year or so travelling around the world, spending lots of money, lots of airtime. She hasn't learned. And the other kids, have all learned, but they're part of this community. They buy the things this community produces, and enough of them to feel that they're still part of everybody else. I mean, much, as we know, much consumerism is keeping up with the Joneses. Now, if all the Joneses have less, then it might work. But again, we're told by the IPCC on wrong evidence that we've got only 12 years. Now, I have no idea how long we've got. I'm not even going to venture into that one. But we know from the last 2 years it's been moving really fast. And how quickly it's going to move from here on, we don't know. It could stall, and yet the process will continue to increase even faster. We don't know. But we all know the principle that if we're being responsible, the possibility of a problem, then we have to face it.
John, school children are saying now they're protesting about all these things, and they're saying, don't forget, we can vote next year or the year after. We can vote.
Yes.
Get one.
I hate to say that my politicians are the pits.
Yes, they are.
And I think the reason is they are created to be compromisers. And they, to get in, which gives them their power, they have to compromise with who gives them the money. So politicians are, on the whole, run by where the money is. And human beings who provide all of that are run by the press. And who owns the press?
The money.
Money. So we're back to a capitalist system. And frankly, I think the problem is the system. Capitalism as such is environmentally a total failure.
I find I don't have my own children, and I'm always amazed at people who have or whatever, who are in power. They all have children, or they have grandchildren, they have great-grandchildren. Now, if you have a future generation, normally your concept is to enhance the world for your future generation. I don't understand, for those people who actually have a blood interest in the future, and to see the world perpetuated in a reasonably livable, condition. Why are they so bloody minded and stuck?
They walk into Parliament carrying lumps of coal.
Well, that's one individual. I honestly don't understand.
The symbolism of that.
Because we have a two-party system, and they just pass the baton. Every election, you either have Labor or you have Liberal. And when you belong to those parties, you don't have to say...
No, but people elect them. People elect them, so we're all guilty of being,
Well, you don't even need a candidate all the time. You wouldn't vote outside Labor.
Well, I think the basic problem is that the law states that companies have to make profit. That's at the cost of the environment, people, etc. Must make profit for the shareholders. And I think that's a fundamental problem.
Yeah,
So it goes back to money.
It all goes back to money.
Money's the
So what happens when the Prime Minister says the kids should go back to school and not get involved in topical issues?
But surely he's right.
An issue or an issue for the future.
It's the kids, if you look at past revolutions, who've led all uprisings.
Yes, here.
But not
And-
now, I don't think now, because I know when my youngest was at uni, I said, do some protesting, do this, as we did in the 60s. And he's going, oh, no one wants to do that. I'm going, just do it, be a student.
His comment's right. No one's doing that.
They weren't like that.
And
No.
a lot of the young kids coming up now, both here and in America and other countries, are beginning to do it.
Yes, the next generation.
But when they do it, what they'll come up against is a political system based upon compromise. If I do this, will you give me that? What's in it for me? I know what you want. Well, I'll help you do that, but give me.
There's a fear of
They've just passed a law to imprison people that protest. So,
Yes,
you
they
really
have.
don't have any incentive to go out and do it, do you?
But that shouldn't stop the protest.
And you
Well,
think
you
we
can
live in a
also use
democracy
Get Up
because we can
and
have
you
this
can do it
sort of free
online.
speech? But it's not that easy. We're being circumscribed. Now, I don't know why Frank's not here, but he'd love this conversation.
Let's not go there, John.
So, after the U3A talk, we formed a group. And we were saying to ourselves, surely we can look at what's needed for the South, because I reckon the South is an area that could do well during the downside. While we're all slipping into the chasm, I think we've got some umbrellas down here. That's what I'm saying. The chasm is in front of us. We can't avoid that. We, our children, or our grandchildren, are all going to pay the price. Now, on the way down, how do we live? Do we live in chaos? Or do we live decently? And hope that things right themselves, which they could over a few centuries.
There would only be a remnant population left.
Pardon?
There would only be a remnant population left.
Yeah, but if it's you and I, and not the rest.
Me, I don't have children either, so.
No, I do.
Yeah.
And I have grandchildren. And I grieve for that. This is where we have placed them in ourselves. So we thought down here, if we really plan properly and get some action, we can start to have some things that would really look after us. For example, we have a week's supply, less than a week's supply, of fuel in this country. If Trump has his war against Iran, they will close the straits, and then we won't have any fuel. It'll happen like that. Now, when that happens, the Commonwealth has already organised that they will simply take all the fuel available for the police to keep us down and quiet, for the army to keep them out, and so on. But that's where the fuel will go. And we will sit at home unable to move. Now, we're a very scattered environment here. And I went to the Lord Mayor and I put a proposition to her. I said, it's a safety that we should, Clem and I both went, we vow for this. I did a presentation that for the safety of this area, we need electric buses or electric trucks. And she said, very nice, shrugged her shoulder and said, well, when you get enough people supporting you, then I'll think about it. I thought this was the role of council, to deal with problems in the sewage, for example, before they bubbled up on your front lawn. And the same with this. So, we haven't got anywhere. However, this turned up the other day. It's an ad for 3 trucks, totally electric, with their plug-in fueling devices. Now, if we had someone who could raise the money, I reckon these are things we absolutely need here. Come Trump's war, or anything like it, how do I get food around to all the scattered communities? How do I pick it up from here and take it to there? No trucks work. Coles deliveries don't happen. There's nothing in the supermarket. How do we get stuff around? How do I get to the hospital if I have to? Even forgetting about things like schools. This sort of thing is an answer to an absolutely present problem down here. And finally, if we all get EV, then we are pretty secure. Couldn't get this off the ground.
How much are they?
What's needed, $200,000. It's not impossible.
No, not a big ask.
That's right. Got nowhere. Think of some other things. The internet is controlled by a switch, basically. They have thrown the switch in the States, done a couple of tests. It works. Turn it off. I can't phone you. I can't email you. I can't discover what's going on. I am isolated, which is the best way to control me. We need a subsidiary way of communication.
We'll be getting rid of the home phone system.
Yeah, but even apart from that, there are ways. You could all have a little walkie-talkie, they'll go to the next farm. There are all sorts of ways we can handle this. But that too requires somebody dedicated enough to actually begin setting it up and doing it. We've done our fire tree for our area. That was wonderful and a big effort. But as far as we went towards communication, and there are other fire trees all the way through Brogo and so on. That's the beginning of something. But we need a way of communicating. I've got potatoes. Have you got oranges? Simple as that. Quite forgetting things like law and order. And how do we keep the vandals out of our houses, which are a whole different matter. How do we educate our kids? How do we continue in this area? Because the train's coming and we've got to get off the line. And the reason we call it the platform is that where we need to be is on the platform, not in the middle of the train line. And this is the sort of thing that we should be working for.
This is work for food. In France, they meet once a week. These people have their own little buses fitted out as their cheese shop or their charcuterie or their vegetables or seafood or whatever, and they all drive into a village at a certain time, and everyone comes, and I was there like, wondering why all these people were suddenly turning up, and then the buses lifted their flaps up and they were full of food.
It's a wonderful system.
Why can't we
But you
do
need
that?
battery. We just make them electric.
Well,
And then you've got to have somebody with this cheese factory that doesn't work on diesel.
you don't need diesel to make cheese.
Pumps, electricity, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, to distribute it.
Yeah?
Right.
And where we go, we're stuck with the energy sector. And we need, therefore, to become solar because the sun is there for us.
How much, do you know how much electric cars are?
Yes,
Yeah, they're not.
I can change my car for 25,000.
Yeah.
I can change
it
it.
modified or to buy a new car?
No, to change my existing car,
Oh, I see, modified.
25,000.
Yeah.
By new cars now, it's about double that.
I've seen ones 30,000. There are some new ones coming in.
Wow.
Okay.
And there's one coming in, or they're coming out very soon, that can not only charge from the grid, it can actually, when it's made electricity,
Correct.
or then
Van de
it
wiels,
can charge back into the, you can give the electricity back into the grid.
Yeah.
And that's a very nifty part of it, because your car batteries can charge your house, keep your house lights on
Wow.
when you're plugged in. But the system works in all directions simultaneously. And I've been thinking of doing it, but I need a bit more money and I need a car.
Just something you have missed in terms of existing technology. During the war, because of fuel shortage, people had the chuffers on the back of their cars. So we could, in the end, it's pretty polluting, but I'm saying that could be a filling gap if the fuel suddenly stopped tomorrow. They still could run the cars.
Do they work on modern cars, Ross?
Sorry?
Do they work on a modern car?
Yeah, I don't think that's...
Or the electronic stuff?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure you've done that.
I think we need a pre-1990 chassis.
And you can run a diesel car on chip oil.
Yes?
Go get the chip oil.
Pre-1990.
Enough chips.
Computers haven't recognised chips.
Yeah.
I hope you got that joke.
Oh, it's computing up.
That's the water pipes.
So that is what I reckon what we need down here. Right at this moment, this is in fact the last slide I used in my last talk, is that we've got enough industry happening here now to actually help us put together what we need for the non-industrial history that's coming. It's still available. And we can actually create, I wrote, an arc in the south. And I did it rather like that. And we can look after ourselves. But we have to do it here on a local, regional basis. And we should not expect any help from the federal government because they're more concerned with BHP and the Chinese. And I don't think we're going to get any help from the council, because they're asleep. So it's back to us again. And we tried, and so far it hasn't worked.
It was very interesting to see what happened in Victoria over the weekend, though, wasn't it? You know, Labour just trounced the Liberal Party, and down there they're doing electric cars, setting up factories and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Governments help. That's what they should do.
Yeah.
So we pay them, so they should be doing everything for us.
That's right.
Well, maybe it wouldn't take much to simply put a hinge somewhere around Cooma and move the border around.
Secession. You and country. Put up the fence.
Thank you, folks. That's it. Let's keep on having a discussion if you want to. But that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
John, can I chip in? Bill Southwood, I'm one of the conveners of Clean Energy for Eternity. And I'm more encouraged by the last bit of what you're saying here, because when you come, the horribleness of it all, and that you cannot do anything globally and politicians are all pathetic, these things may all be true. But then you say, right, local movements are the story. And CFI came to this conclusion a long time ago. The feds are pathetic, the state is hopeless. I wouldn't write off the council. The council is actually worth more than you think.
Yeah.
And there's more you can do. You say you need electricity. CFI is actually trying to negotiate turning the Brown Mountain hydro station into a pumped hydro, to do exactly that kind of thing. So you use solar to pump the water up the hill. When the sun won't shine, it comes down and does that. We are encouraging ever so small people to put solar on their roofs and looking at batteries to do all these things. Now, I think that sort of message is much more likely to go and do some good with people at a local level. And if you get enough people doing that, then what you're calling an arc here, and I have a worry about that, because I think that when you've got an arc, an awful lot of animals are going to try and get on. Mostly, well, no, I'm not saying mostly, but so everything is local, and to go and do that, and then work from that. Now, I also see some encouraging signs, but I don't disagree with you about politicians on the whole, but there are some signs that some other politicians are starting to listen after Wentworth, after Queensland, after Victoria over the weekend, and I think that the kids, I think that anybody saying, oh, that's why the kids were not prepared to do it ourselves, that's hypocritical, I'm sorry. If we're not prepared to give this stuff up, then why the heck are we going to expect our kids to? So I think we've all got to take a lot more, build a lot more local movements, and Clean Energy is trying to do that. This is not a commercial, but if anybody would like to leave their name with me, seriously, we've got supporters, we'll be having some big community meetings coming up in February to try and look at this, and I'll talk to you about that as well.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
no, we shall.
So how about Yakandanda is a electrically, they're self-sufficient. What have they done?
Ish, wind, and some solar. I'm not terribly familiar with Yakandanda. I've heard it talked about. Again, different small areas. I mean, the ponds actually generated all the power they needed one day last summer, winter, I think. It is happening, and John is not wrong in the great macro thing, but things are happening locally, and that is where the optimism is. And then if you do enough of that, then you're going to start getting the attention of these turkeys in Canberra and in Macquarie Street as well.
A glimmer of hope is too that Labor's made a policy, no support for coal, coal-fired power stations. Isn't that, that's a good point, because the Liberals still want to build more coal stations. So that's a little glimmer that they're at least saying we've got to get off that hook off coal.
These are all true. We must talk.
We will.
And anyone else who wants to be in on that conversation, I presume?
I can smell another course coming on. Never miss an opportunity.
I wasn't old enough.
You better.
But I thought the first course we should have is how to say no and not give a toss. No, it's quite seriously, if people are interested in this, I think another set of talks, and using U3A as part of our push, which will be for about February when people get over the silly season and all their grandchildren go back home again, and to go and do something which involves. See, I think with the greatest respect here, you are preaching to the choir. You know, everybody here knows what you're saying. Now, there's
Well,
two.
there's so much I didn't have to tell you.
And look, it is, and the question is, why do the turkeys in Canberra? You say the IPCC is rubbish because it's underestimating everything. They say the IPCC is rubbish because it's panic mongering. Like Royal IPCC doesn't get much backing from anywhere, but it's the only thing we've got there. And even if we just believed what they say and persuaded the turkeys in Canberra, then we're going to be a lot better off.
Since I'm talking to you, I can push the IPCC down.
Okay, sure, indeed. Yeah, we won't take
I knew who was coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just that. I'm not as optimistic as you. I think that the big problem to me is the human species, and it's us, because of our expectations and what we want. And it's the pollution that really, really worries me when I look at the stories about the pollution. And I was asking the checkout girls in Woolworths, I said, are there people bringing back those reusable plastic bags? She said, no, they just keep buying new ones. And they've gotten used to the 15 cents. They're not bringing them back. They're going to be, once again, single use. And I asked in Coles, they're not bringing them back. And then I remember reading an article about in Ireland, they said the same thing. So they put the price up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people, they're just going to be throwing those bags out because they're not bringing them back to reuse. And that was the whole point. And I just think that it's our expectations. Like, I look at what I do and
Why
I
don't
think...
you petition Woolworths to give out paper bags instead of plastic bags?
But they won't, because they're scared of people. Because Coles almost reneged because they said people complain. Coles and Woolworths had to have special training to handle the abuse they were getting. Because the Coles lady said to me, yeah, we've gone off and done courses because people are so abusive about not getting the free plastic bags. This is when they were bringing it in, and I can't remember if it was Coles or Woolworths reneged on it for a bit and then came back. But they've still got the plastic bags in the fresh produce because they're scared. They're scared people will complain. And it goes back to the ordinary person again, our expectations, what we want, what we're used to. Young people, like I've got children and grandchildren, they're so used to living with that phone, they can't do much else without it. And now they're building the new TAFE thing in the old hospital in Bega, and it's going to be a computer hub. They're going to get rid of TAFE teachers with the eye-to-eye contact and talking, and the kids will sit around computers. So this whole social problem of our current world, I'm thinking, this is what young people expect. They expect it, and how do you change that? It's like my grandkids, they collect the tins and get 10 cents and they do this and do that, but they go to my place and say, where's your microwave? I say, I don't have one, and they look at me in shock. Haven't got a microwave? Why isn't your TV like this? And I go, no, I've got a TV about this size because I don't watch it much, and they're in shock. Like, why haven't you got these things? Stuff, and that's their expectation.
I rather think that something is going to have to come from outside of us. Now, I don't mean God, but something of that scale that will actually bump us into a different sense of reality. I think the slightly imperceptible changes that we do, like plastic bags and so on, these are important, but they're small things, and they add up to be a big thing. But it doesn't get us really anywhere.
No.
What we need is such a kick up the bum, having our rugs pulled right from underneath us. Then we may start actually doing
You
something.
need some chaos.
Chaos is more wonderful, so wonderful, because nobody knows what's happening. We all hunker down and we grab everything like teddy bears and look for some way to be safe. But chaos has a real benefit. When you wake up, things can be different.
Excuse me.
It'll be very uncomfortable and awful.
I was wondering, when will it get to the stage with the Earth being in so much danger and the danger of population spreading all over the Earth? In each country, they're going to have to stop having kids. Wonder what time a law will come in that there's no spread of kids in an area.
If the Club of Rome is right, there's a new theory, which is very interesting, I think it's correct. It's called the Seneca Cliff. It is that things gradually go more and more and more, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And they reach that point, and they don't then get gradually smaller. They go over the cliff and they drop. And that, to me, says yes, Club of Rome, all those Club of Rome diagrams, you put together the forces impinging on population, of lack of resources, lack of food, lack of water, problems with insects, problems with birds, fertilisation of crops, blah-de-blah-de-blah, all of these.
Educated women, that's a good start. Educated women too, that's helping, isn't it? Yeah.
You think so?
Be very, very careful, John. Be very, very careful.
Well, men have got us into this problem, basically.
Yes.
It's a male-oriented universe. So we are the problem.
Men.
Yeah.
Well,
Is it
we're
when you
all
just-
under that same conditioning though. We've all, that influence that's been that male or patriarchal or whatever, everyone's been influenced that negatively and positively, male and women. So that's the pattern we've used, it's shifting. We have to,
So
But
if
you just
come
look
back
at
to
the
that-
animal world,
Let me just
it's
come
the
back
males.
to your answer.
Yes.
When you start adding together all of these factors, whether male or otherwise, the population will come to a point where there isn't suddenly, because of a particular event such as typhoon, famine, something like that, there isn't enough food. It's not just like now, when 70 million people don't have enough to eat. But it's when 100 million people die this month because there was not enough to eat, or because of war, or all these other factors. That's when your population will start to go down dramatically. And the grief associated with that, with all of us everywhere, will be just unbearable.
And the infection.
Now, positive action out of grief, psychologically, is a really difficult thing to expect. We tend to go to where it is most secure and what we most know. So you begin to get a population from 8 million down to 6, down to 5, down to 4, down to 3, which is where the pundits all say we need to be. It means that of all of us 25 people in the room, 16 of you will be dead. Can't make that. Yeah.
Poverty is the check upon humanity's
And
exploitation.
then how will you feel?
Well, I'll be dead or I'll be here with a few people, which means I'll be very comfortable.
I doubt it.
Well, yeah,
Because
true, but,
you'll grieve for the guy next to you. The
Yeah.
guy next to you. the guy
but that's sort of like the natural evolution of humanity, isn't it?
It may be in the intellectual sense, but from the heart,
Oh, yeah.
this is something astounding. It happened in the Middle Ages with the Black Death, and that was just 45%. And you can see the impact on their art. You follow their art carefully, which is what I do, and you can see what happened because of that sudden, instantaneous elimination of people. And we've got to expect that. When that happens, what do? We go back to the old methods and we make them stronger because we can't think of anything else. And we like to, as long as in discussions like this, we can begin to see potential for other things. We can carry those potentials with us into a period of high stress. And we like to start using them. But it's not a period that is going to be very pleasant when that turn away happens. But it will happen. We'll hit the Seneca Cliff and down the way.
I'm trying to find a moment to finish this because there are so many questions that everyone's got. Maybe we can ask John to come back again next term, perhaps, or in term 2.
I'm doing 5 lectures next term. I think that's
I know
probably
you
enough
are,
for me.
I know. And John is going to do some talks for us next year, but I think on a little different sort of subject.
It's a lovely idea, let's do that.
Yeah.
And let's do it with you guys.
We'll talk. So if you just give a round of applause to John. Unfortunately, we are on a time constraint.
Can I began with the troubles and I walked in the door. I'll say another. I'm doing a set of lectures next term called Strategies of Empire. And it's about strategies of empire. And it's about how the Americans are the new empire people in this world, and how they got there, and how they disappeared. Just looking at that whole scene of the last...
Series of 5 classes, each week, 5 weeks in a row. So John will have a lot to do over the summer holiday.
And John, have you mentioned the website?
If you want to see the Eco Platform website, enter ecoplatform South Coast. Yep. You'll get 20 other sites that you need to do with the South Coast.